Hello everyone. Today we will be reading from The Complete Fairy Tales of the Brothers Grimm. Today's story will be The Moon. The Moon. In ancient times there was a land where the night was always dark, and the sky covered it like a black cloth, for the moon never rose there, and not a single star twinkled in the darkness. At the time of the creation of the world, the nocturnal glow had been sufficient. Once, 4 young fellows from this land set out on a journey and arrived in another kingdom around evening, just as the sun disappeared beyond the mountains. A glistening ball stood on an oak tree and cast a soft light far and wide. The light allowed one to see and distinguish everything clearly, even though it was not as bright as the sun. The travelers stood still and asked a farmer who happened to be driving by with his wagon what kind of light it was. "That's the moon," he replied. "Our mayor bought it for 3 thalers and stuck it on the oak tree. He must pour oil on it every day and keep it cleaned so that it always burns brightly. We pay him $1 a week for doing the work." When the farmer had driven away, one of the travelers said, "We could use this lamp. We have an oak tree at home that's just as large as this one, and we could hang it there. What a joy it would be if we didn't have to grope about in the dark anymore." "You know what we'll do," said the second. "We'll get a wagon and horses and cart the moon away. They can buy another one here." "I'm a good climber," said the third one. "I'll get it down for sure." The fourth one brought a wagon with horses to the spot, and the third one climbed the tree, drilled a hole in the moon, passed a rope through it, and let it down. When the shining ball lay on top of the wagon, they covered it with a cloth so that nobody could see the theft. They brought it safely to their land and hung it on a tall oak tree. Old and young rejoiced when the new lamp cast its light over all the fields and filled the rooms and chambers with its rays. The dwarfs came out of their mountain caves, and the elves, dressed in their little red coats, danced around and around on the meadows. The 4 young fellows took care that the moon was provided with oil. They cleaned the wick and received $1 a week for their work. But they became old men, and when one of them became sick and saw his death approaching, he ordered that a fourth of the moon was to be buried with him in his grave as his property. When he died, the mayor climbed the tree and cut off a fourth of the moon with his hedge clippers, and he placed it in the coffin. The light of the moon decreased, but not very noticeably. When the second died, another fourth was given to him, and the light became less. It became even weaker after the death of the third one, who also took his part with him. And when the fourth one was buried, the old darkness set in again. Whenever the people went out without a lantern in the evening, they continually bumped heads. However, when the parts of the moon had become reassembled again in the underworld, where darkness had always reigned, the dead became restless and awoke from their sleep. They were astonished to find that they could see again. The moonlight was enough for them, for their eyes had become so weak that they would not have been able to stand the brightness of the sun. They got up, became merry, and assumed their old ways of life again. Some began to play and dance. Others went to the taverns where they asked for wine, got drunk, brawled and quarreled, and finally raised their canes and pounded each other. The noise became greater and greater until it finally reached as far as heaven. St. Peter, who guards the gate of heaven, believed that the underworld had begun to revolt and called the heavenly hosts together to repel the wicked archenemy if he and his followers were to storm the abode of the blessed. However, since they did not come, he mounted his horse and rode through the gate of heaven down into the underworld. There he made the dead quiet down and ordered them to return to their graves. Then he took the moon away to heaven and hung it up in the sky. So that was The Moon from the book The Complete Fairy Tales of the Brothers Grimm. If you enjoyed that, please feel free to like and subscribe. And thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day.